Another question that comes in my mind is, if you look at the global situation right now of the world, in the Muslim countries, we have religious minorities that are undergoing a lot of, how should I say, difficulties, and their rights in certain countries are suppressed as per certain non-Muslims. And yet Muslims here in the West say that Islam is a faith that uplifts the freedom of the non-Muslims. How do you say to this, how do you reply to this contradiction, or what do you say in terms of...
Well, that contradiction has arisen because of the way in which Islamic law has evolved and the way Islamic societies has evolved on the one hand, and the way in which societies elsewhere have evolved on the other. Actually, the way societies elsewhere have evolved on the other hand to promote human freedom and human dignity and so on, freedom of conscience, freedom of worship, freedom of association, freedom of religion, all of these are Islamic principles in fact, and they're built into the Islamic system, but for some reason the Islamic law, I mean we know the reasons, but the Islamic law and Islamic society has evolved to close in on itself and not to allow for this kind of dialogue and interaction and freedom and pluralism. Whereas in fact when we look at the Quran says, for example, that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, cannot force anyone to believe. He has to allow for the freedom. In Surah 5 verse 48, God says that if he wanted, he could make all people believers, but he left it such so that he will judge finally among the people on the day of judgment. And he says in the meantime, فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ, race with each other in doing good things. So this verse emphasizes that there will be a plurality of religions. People will have different faith followings, and God allows it to be like that in this world, and then he will judge us on the life hereafter.
On the subject of this hot topic called Sharia, a lot of non-Muslims claim that Sharia treats non-Muslims living in these Muslim lands as second-class citizens, and they refer to a particular terminology called dhimmis. And these non-Muslims, we have tax that we impose based on Sharia on these non-Muslims. Don't you think, in their opinion, isn't this like being unfair treatment of non-Muslims in these Muslim lands as per Sharia guidelines? How do you respond to this question?
Well, the way in which you described it would seem unfair, but if we understand what is the purpose behind this law in the half a minute we have left, then we will see that there's nothing here discriminatory or intended to be discriminatory to anyone. Muslims have to pay zakat wherever they live, and this is a kind of tax, just like people pay taxes in the United States of America.
Zakat means charity.
It's a charity, okay. But you see, in a regulated way, in an Islamic state, it'll be paid to the state, and then the state would distribute this to all of the deserving heads. So the Muslims would pay that tax, and the non-Muslims would pay a separate tax, which is referred to as the jizya. It's almost like the zakat, but it might be, the amount may vary depending on the needs of the situation. The purpose is not to penalize non-Muslims, but to get taxes from them as citizens of the state, but not to take it through a religious venue, which the zakat is normally paid through. So a Muslim would, with good conscience, pay the zakat, but a non-Muslim cannot be expected to pay the zakat, which also has a religious connotation. Since they do not share that religion, they pay a different tax, which is called jizya.
Thank you for the clarification, Imam Shabir. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.